All right, today we're going to dig into the story of a housing market that did something pretty unusual in 2025. It actually slowed down, but without crashing. We're looking at Powell, Tennessee, to really understand what happened, why it matters to you, and of course, what the data is telling us about 2026. This quote right here really nails it. For anyone who is trying to buy or sell a home in Powell, 2025 absolutely felt like a turning point. It wasn't just another year of business as usual. It was a real, fundamental shift away from that frantic, crazy pace we'd all gotten used to. You could just feel the change in the air. And there's a name for what happened, the Great Normalization. It's the perfect way to describe it. This was the story of a market moving from total chaos to a sense of calm, from these extreme, unsustainable conditions to something much more balanced and, honestly, a lot more predictable. So what do we actually mean by normalization? Well, this is the most important part. This was not a market crash. Prices didn't collapse. Instead, it was more like a return to a healthier rhythm. That frantic pace from the last few years just couldn't last forever, and it finally settled down, which created a whole new ballgame for both buyers and sellers. In the world of real estate, normalization is pretty simple. It just means prices stop shooting for the moon and find a more stable, sustainable level. It means buyers get a little bit of their power back, and it means homes start sitting on the market for a more, well, normal amount of time. If there's one word to describe this whole thing, it's stability. But look, this isn't just about a vibe or a feeling. The numbers tell the exact same story. So let's jump into the charts and see the hard evidence of this great normalization in action. Okay, so the first thing that jumps out here is that blue line. See how it's steadily climbing all through the spring and summer? That's the number of active listings, basically the inventory of homes for sale. More homes on the market meant more choices for buyers, which immediately started to take some of that intense pressure off. And this next chart shows the direct result of that growing inventory. The average days on market, that's how long a house sits before it sells, went up quite a bit. It settled into what most experts would call a much healthier range, around 40 to 60 days. This gave buyers something they hadn't had in years: time. Time to think, time to compare, and time to make a decision without feeling totally panicked. Now, this chart is probably the most important one for understanding 2025. Just look at that gold line. That's the median sale price. Notice what it's not doing? It's not falling off a cliff. Instead, it levels out. Sure, it bounces around a little, but the overall picture is one of stability. This is the visual proof that the market held its value and normalized, instead of crashing like so many people were afraid it would. And if you want to boil all that data down to one single powerful number, here it is. The median sale price in Powell in 2025 actually increased by 2.3%. It's a modest, sustainable, and healthy number that just screams stability, not crisis. The bottom line is, values held firm. Okay, so we've looked at the data, but what did this all actually mean for people trying to buy a house? Well, 2025 was definitely the year of the buyer's comeback. They went from having almost zero leverage to being back in the driver's seat for the first time in a long time. And we saw this play out in some really specific ways. All of a sudden, buyers weren't forced into waiving critical things like home inspections anymore. They could actually negotiate on repairs again. We also saw two kinds of buyers really thrive: first-timers, who were drawn to Powell's relative affordability, and people relocating from more expensive cities, who brought equity with them and helped keep those prices stable. And this really highlights Powell's unique spot in the wider Knoxville area. It's not the high-end luxury market you'd find in Farragut, and it's not dominated by brand new construction like Hardin Valley. Powell has carved out this perfect middle ground, offering solid value and stability in established neighborhoods, which, it turns out, is exactly what a lot of buyers were looking for. Okay, so if buyers were getting their power back, that obviously meant that sellers had to adapt. The days of just putting a sign in the yard and watching the offers flood in were pretty much over. Success in 2025 required a whole new strategy. It really came down to three key things for sellers. First, pricing it right from day one was absolutely essential. If you tried to price your home based on the market peaks of the past, you just ended up having to do price cuts later. Second, presentation mattered more than ever. Clean, well-maintained homes just sold better and faster. It's that simple. And third, timing became a real strategic advantage. Listing your house when there was less competition could still get you a lot of strong interest. So that's the story of 2025. A market finding its balance. But now let's look ahead and see how all this sets the stage for 2026. What should buyers and sellers be expecting this year? Well, the forecast is for more of this healthy stability. As you can see, experts are predicting some modest price appreciation, somewhere in the range of 2 to 4%. Now, this all assumes interest rates pretty much hold steady or maybe even dip a little. The key takeaway is continued sustainable growth. We're not getting back on that roller coaster. So for buyers in 2026, the advice is crystal clear. Be prepared. That means getting your financing all lined up before you start looking. It means knowing the local market inside and out. And because things are more stable, you need to be ready to act when you find the right house. Waiting around for the perfect moment could mean you end up competing with a lot more people if interest rates happen to drop. And what about sellers? Well, the lessons from 2025 are the playbook for 2026. Accurate pricing is still, without a doubt, the #1 most critical factor. Investing a little bit in minor updates and professional marketing will make your home stand out from the crowd. The buyer demand is still there, but you have to position your home correctly to capture it. Which brings us to a final thought here. After years of extremes, either a market that was too hot to buy in or one that was too uncertain to make a move, we're finally in this normalized, stable environment. That creates real opportunities for both buyers and sellers who are strategic. And it leaves us with this one last question to chew on. In this new, more balanced market, is it possible the biggest risk of all is just sitting on the sidelines and doing nothing? Something to think about.